I'm going to get back into the series that I've been teaching on, which is the covenant series. And as I explained to you, that a covenant is the Hebrew word for covenant is brit, which means an agreement, which means let's cut a deal or an agreement, okay? So I've been talking about from Genesis, Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I've been talking about what? The covenant. And I've been talking about how there is no new covenant. It's just an extension of a covenant that previously existed, okay? Now, when I say that there is no new covenant, I'm talking about that within the covenant that the Most High made with Adam, Noah, and Abraham, there are different dimensions in the covenant. Y'all hear me? There are different dimensions in the covenant, but there is no new covenant. Now, I know when we get to Jeremiah, we would think, well, the Bible says that I'm going to make a new covenant. And then when we read in the Gospels where it says, Hamashiach, when the word called Christ, said, this is the new covenant which is done in my blood. You understand? We would be like, well, okay, he's saying there's a new covenant right here, Apostle. That's a new covenant. So you're not teaching right. No, yes, I am teaching right, because, you know, the translators of the English Bible didn't translate it accurately. There is no new covenant, because Hamashiach was prophesied first in Genesis before he manifested to do what he did in the Gospels. Because he told the woman that your seed shall bruise the head of the serpent. That's Hamashiach. So what Hamashiach did in the New Testament was already prophesied what happened in Genesis. So there is no new covenant. There's no one covenant, a two covenant, a three covenant. It's all the same. It's just different dimensions in one perpetual covenant. Why would he say, Brother Anthony, to our forefathers that it's a perpetual covenant? A perpetual covenant means what? It's continuous, right? So how is it going to say in the Old Testament or to the forefathers a perpetual covenant, and then we get to the New Testament, it says a new covenant? See, this is why I can't roll with some of these Hebrew Israelites who take the King James 1611 version as 100% accurate. You understand? The translators at that time did their best to translate it as best as they could at that particular time. Turn your Bibles to Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, the 12th verse. Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, the 12th verse. Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, the 12th verse. Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, the 12th. No, Deuteronomy, the 29th. Deuteronomy, the 29th chapter, the first through the second verse. I'm going to read. These are the words of the covenant which the Most High commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the words of the covenant which the Most High commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab. Besides the covenant which he made with them in Horeb, right?
Right.
Now, let us focus, y'all. This is not a new covenant now that Moses is making with our forefathers. He is just giving them a different dimension of the same covenant that was made with our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So our people have been brought out of Egypt at this particular time. The week before last, on the Shabbat before last, I taught on the covenant part 7. And during that particular time, our forefathers was brought out of Egypt by the hand of the Most High through Moses. And it was prophesied to Abraham that our seed would be in a land that is not theirs, but they would be brought out with great substance. Okay? So now they are out of the land, and the Most High told Moses to speak to the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he had made with them in Horeb. Now, when the Most High brought our forefathers out of Egypt to the mountain, he made a covenant with them. He came down in the mountain, right? He came down, he made a covenant with our forefathers at Mount Sinai, which is where he gave our forefathers the what? The Torah. And he betrothed them to him. Because after he gave them the commandments, they said, all that you say, we will do. Okay? So he betrothed them to him, meaning he married them to himself, and he gave them the Torah, which we call the law. All right. Now, they sojourned in the wilderness because of their disobedience. Okay, Deuteronomy the 29th chapter. I just read from the first through I just read the first verse. Okay. Now I'm going to drop down to the second verse. And Moses, or Moshe, called unto all Israel and said unto them, Ye have seen all that the Most High did before your eyes in the land of Egypt unto Pharaoh and unto all his servants, unto all his land. Okay? I'm going to drop down to the 9th verse. Where is my water? Dominique, can you get my water out of my office, please? I'm going to drop down the same chapter, Deuteronomy the 29th chapter, to the 9th verse. Okay. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper. Thank you. Can you keep my high chair as well, please? He says, keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may what? Prosper. In all that ye do. Who want to prosper? If you're not prospering, you are in poverty. And if you're in poverty, you're a slave. Because the debtor is slave to who? The lender. Okay. So he's telling our forefathers that we are commanded to keep the words of this covenant. And the covenant that our forefathers came into covenant with was Torah. Because he gave them, when he brought them out of Egypt, he gave them what? Torah. What is the Torah? The Torah is starting from Exodus, the commandments, excuse me. The commandments is Exodus, the 20th chapter. Thou shalt have no other Elohim, by no other God besides the Most High. Thou shalt keep the Sabbath day, which we are doing here today. And we know that the Sabbath day is the true day. Right, Dominique? Yeah. Because we see YAH'S, whom the world called Jesus, in the Gospel of Luke, 4th chapter, 16, 17 verses, he went to church on what day? The Shabbat, on the Sabbath, right? So if we're going to be a true follower of Jesus Christ, we're going to have to what? Do what he did, right? He kept Saturday, he kept the Shabbat. That's why we read from the Old Testament, then we read from the New Testament, because some would say, well, brother, you just get that from the Old Testament. We're in the New Testament. Well, in the New Testament, we see in the Gospel that YAH'S, whom the world called Christ, went to church on the Sabbath, Saturday. Okay, the Torah, or the law, is the covenant that the Most High made with our forefathers when he brought them out of Egypt. And he told them that in order for you to keep this word of the covenant, you got to, put me before everybody else, keep the Sabbath day, honor your mother and your father. And the reason why a lot of our young people die today is because, the reason why a lot of black young people die today in the community is because a lot of them don't honor their parents. They don't honor their father and their mother. You understand? And the Bible says that if you honor your father and your mother, your life will be extended. You will live a long, prosperous life. The other parts of the Torah are the covenant that he made with our forefathers, that we should not steal from one another. We should not murder. We should not commit adultery, right? And we should not be desiring our neighbor's possessions, including his wife. Or she should be desiring her homegirl's husband. You understand? And then also, he also commanded us not to eat unclean foods. Eating shrimps. What does shrimp do? They filter out the sea, right? So we should eat shrimps because they filter out the sea and things of that nature. And so Moses is telling our forefathers that we are commanded to keep the words of this covenant, okay? The 10th verse. You stand this day, all of you, before the Most High, your Elohim, your captains of tribes, your elders, your officers, with all men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in the camp, from the hewer of the wood unto the drawer of the water. 12th verse, that thou shouldest enter into the covenant with the Lord thy Elohim, or with the Most High thy Elohim, into his oak, which the Most High thy Elohim made with thee this day. He said that every one of you, speaking to our forefathers, the Israelites. Now, for our viewers who are viewing us by way of social media or YouTube, you understand? I want to give you an understanding. When you hear me mention the word forefathers, as I'm teaching this Bible, when I say that we are that our forefathers, I am implying that the so-called black man and the so-called black woman of America, we are not Africans. We are not Gentiles. But we are what? Israelites. Okay? So, the Most High was telling Moses to remind the people to keep the words of this covenant, okay? And to enter into this covenant, the 13th verse. And here's why we should keep the covenant. Here's the benefit to keeping the covenant. That he may establish thee today for a people unto himself. that he may be unto thee a Elohim, or a God. As he said unto thee, and as he has sworn unto who? Thy fathers. To Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Now, because of the translator, we would think that, wait a minute, so he made a covenant with Abraham, he made a covenant with Noah, he made a covenant with Abraham, he made another covenant with Isaac, he made another covenant with Jacob, he made a covenant with our forefathers at Mount Sinai, he made a covenant in the land of Moab, he made a covenant at Horeb. Oh, that's 7 covenants, apostle. Ain't no 7 covenants. It's just different dimensions or different dispensations of the same covenant. And how do we know this, Brother Anthony? How do we know this, Brother Dominique? Because he keeps saying throughout the whole Bible, as he has sworn unto thy fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We get that all through the Bible. According to the covenant that I made with thy fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We can get in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, when Stephen, who was martyred, gave testimony of Hamashiach, he started quoting from who? Abraham. See? It's a perpetual covenant. There is no new covenant. Now, there's a new dispensation of the covenant, but not a new covenant. Okay, moving on. I don't want to be long, but I will be strong. 14th verse. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath. Neither with the people that was present at that time do I make this covenant, Brother Dominique. So the people that were standing before Moshe of Moses at that time, he was not just making it with them, but he was making it with everybody that would come from them, from their children's children, right? He said, 14th verse, and even with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before the Most High your Elohim, also with him that is not here with us this day. Meaning for those of us who would read about it. We wasn't there that day. But we know we're in this covenant because we can read about it, right? See, the Bible is the true history of the black man. Okay, 29th verse. The 29th verse. The 29th verse. The secret things belong unto the Most High our Elohim, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. When you see the word, that we may do all the words of this law, that means that we may do all the words of this Torah. If that's what it says, Brother Anthony, in the Cephas, that's right. That's right. Thank you, brother. Okay, moving on. Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. Let me get to my other notes that the elder printed out for me. Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. I'm going to start from the first verse. Okay, let's see. Okay. At the same time, Jeremiah the 31st chapter, the first verse, at the same time said, the Most High, will I be the Elohim, or the God of all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. Okay? I'm going to drop down from the first verse to the third verse. And the Most High had appeared of oath unto me, saying, Yea, I have loved thee with an everlasting what? I have loved thee with an everlasting love. So when a woefully misinformed pastor would say, well, God cast away the Israelites, quoting from Paul in the book of Romans, you understand, he's woefully misinformed. You understand? Because wherever we were cast out or cast to, you understand, it was not to cut us off, but it was to serve as a correction or to chastise us. You understand? So that we could know the difference between living under a theocracy, a Torah, or living under paganism as we are today, scattered in four corners of the earth. You understand? But he says in the 3rd verse, for the Most High had appeared of old unto me, saying, yea, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. Therefore with loving kindness have I drawn thee. The 4th verse, again, I will build thee. Thou shalt be built, O Virgin of Israel, and thou shalt again be adorned with the tabrets, and shall go forth in the dances of them that make merry. Okay? Now, between the time that our forefathers received the covenant, or the dispensation of the covenant at Mount Sinai, and this time right here in Jeremiah, to give you a little bit of historical background, we have to understand that at this particular time, the kingdom had been split. The northern kingdom during the ministry of Jeremiah had already been taken into captivity by the Syrians. Now the southern kingdom was about to be taken into captivity, I was going to go into captivity to the Babylonians. Okay? But Jeremiah, who was a prophet, could see that the Most High, even after taking the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom into captivity to other nations, Jeremiah, a prophet, could foresee that the Most High would one day fulfill his perpetual covenant with the Israelites and bring them back to the land of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Y'all see that? Okay, moving on. 7th verse in Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, the 7th verse. But thus says the Most High, sing with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the chief of the nations. Publish ye, praise ye, and say, O Most High, save thy people, the remnant of Israel. What people that you know have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, that wherever we have been scattered at, we are facing discrimination, police brutality, racial profiling of all sorts. What people that you know have been scattered to the four corners of the earth? Nobody but the so-called black man and black woman of America, who was scattered around the world by the transatlantic slave trade. Moving on. Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coast of the earth. We got black people in Germany. We got black people in London, England. You understand? Those are northern countries, right? We got black people in Canada, the United States. And gather them from the coast of the earth. We have black people on the coast of California. We have black people in Brazil, on the coast of Brazil. And with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travail with child together. A great company shall return thither. You understand? So this is the Most High speaking about a people who have been scattered. Why were we scattered? Well, we were scattered according to the curses of Deuteronomy 28 chapter. We would be scattered if we did not what? Keep the words of the what? The covenant. So, the Most High was prophesying through Jeremiah that our forefathers would one day be redeemed from all the nations we have been driven to. You understand? Do you ever wonder why we are treated like second class or no class citizens in the United States. Do you ever wonder why the Constitution of the United States considers us still today as to be 3/5 of a human being? Do you ever wonder why the majority of those who are incarcerated in the prisons of America are black or melanated colored folks? You understand? Do you ever wonder why, after we have fought in the Army, in the Navy, in the Air Force for this country, and bled for this country, and fought for civil rights, you understand? 60 years after Dr. King was murdered, you understand? We're still fighting for the same things again. Do you ever wonder why we are treated so badly in America? Well, let me tell you why. Because this is not our homeland. If this was our homeland, then why did they need to bring us here as slaves? And let me tell you why. Because we are not the same people as the Chinese. We're not the same people as the so-called white people. You understand? We're not the same people as the ones that own almost every corner store in our neighborhood. Right? We're not the same people as they. Right? You know, they make money off of us. They call you brother, they call you sister when you walk in them stores. But that's only because that's good PR, that's good public relations. Because they are in your hood to blood suck you of all your little money. You understand? But won't you just consider that we're not the same people. And you know what? We don't hate nobody. We're just simply saying that we're not the same people. You understand? And we're simply saying we're not the same people because we are the true Jews of the Bible. We are the true Hebrew Israelites of the Bible. And the reason why we're treated the way we're treated is because they see us as a different nation, but we see ourselves as the same nation, Brother Henry. You would tell a white man, well, we're one nation. But the white man would tell you, no, you're not. We may believe the same, but we're not the same people. We may live in the same political system, but we're not the same people. My people came over here voluntarily. Your people came over here as slaves. So we're not the same people. You understand? We may work on the same job. We may now drink from the same water fountain. We may now sit on the same toilet. But we are not the same people. You understand? And our people would get upset and get angry because another nation won't accept you as the same people. You can't get mad at them because they won't accept you as the same people. The Most High invented nations. The problem with America is not racism, it's prejudice. Racism simply means you love your own people first. Prejudice means that you prejudge someone. So the problem with America is that the problem with America is prejudice, not racism. But you hear everybody in the street saying racism is hate. You understand? But if you look at the true definition of that word, it would tell you it's totally opposite. Racism simply means you love your own people first. Like, it wouldn't be right if I was to love somebody else's child more than I love my son. You would say, well, that's wrong, brother. You're supposed to look out for your own first, right, elder? Well, likewise, why would you get mad if Trump said, I'm going to look out for my own people first? It's too bad Obama didn't do it. Well, I just want to be fair and just to everybody. Well, first look out for your own people first. Even our Hispanic brothers and sisters that come over here, they look out for their own people first. You can't didn't say they being unfaithful. The Gospel of John said, and he came unto his own what? First. You look out for your own what? First. Okay, moving on. I won't be long, but I will be strong. Okay. Now look, so Jeremiah prophesied that the Most High will one day redeem us from wherever we have been scattered at. We've been scattered. We're scattered people. You understand? And we were scattered by slavery, not by migration. That's a big difference. You understand? A lot of people migrate to America. The only difference with us is that we didn't migrate here. Plymouth Rock, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. You understand? You know? Okay, Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. I done read the first verse. I done read the third through the fourth verse. I done read the 7th through the 8th verse. I'm going to drop down to the 10th through the 11th verses. Hear the word of the Most High, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, declare it in Haiti, a majority Israelite-like nation. Declare it in Jamaica, a majority Israelite-like nation. Declare it in Puerto Rico, a majority Israelite-like nation. He that scattered Israel will what? Gather him, and keep him as a shepherd doing his flock. So, who scattered us? The Most High. Elohim, God, he scattered us. Why did he scatter us? Because we didn't keep the word of the covenant. That's right. We didn't keep the word of the covenant. So he scattered us. You understand? He just used. This is why we can't hate the white man. Because he just used the white man as a tool to carry us into slavery. You understand? And what do you do with a tool when you get through with a tool? You put it up. Right? 11th verse. For the Most High had redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. Who can ransom us from this police brutality that we face in America? What does the word ransom mean, W? Ransom. What does the word ransom mean? Anybody? Ransom. R-A-N. S-O-M-E-D.
Price paid to get to free somebody or some other cause.
That's right. Chief Elder said the price that is paid to free you from bondage, to free you from slavery. You understand? Dr. King, the late Dr. King, and Nat Turner, and Malcolm X, and other numerous other civil rights leaders. You understand? They paid a price for trying to free us, but they didn't free us. Right? They paid the price for speaking up for our rights, right? But they didn't free us. And how do we know they didn't free us, Brother Anthony? Because 60 years later, we still dealing with the same issues.
They give us a big promise, but that's it.
So we done had Marcus Garvey who tried to ransom us. All these leaders who died on the forefront fighting for our rights to be ransomed from this system of discrimination and racism and prejudice and things of that nature. You understand? But we are still 60 years later dealing with the same issues. They had police brutality back then. They just didn't have the cameras. They didn't have these cell phones. The only reason why a lot of this stuff is being exposed now, this stuff been going on, you know, because the police department started with slave catchers.
Yeah, there you go.
The greatest fugitive in America was Harriet Tubman, a black woman. Because they could never catch up. It's not that fugitive show that come on television, The Fugitive. No, the greatest fugitive is Harriet Tubman because they could never catch her. But the police departments of America is an extension of the slave catchers. You hear that, Dominique? So, moving on. I won't be long, but I will be strong. Only the Most High Elohim is going to be able to ransom us. Only the Most High. And when it speaks of ransoming us, he's not going to pay money for us to get free. That's just a, what do you call it, Elvin? A figure of speech, right? You understand? Okay. What am I at? What's that, sister? 11, okay. All right. For the Most High have redeemed Jacob and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he. I know a lot of black militias are on the rise, but the so-called white man still got more ammo. You understand? So we're going to need the Most High to come and ransom us, because these Gentiles are stronger than us at this present moment. You understand? But they're not stronger than our Elohim. They're not stronger than our God. They're not stronger than Hamashiach, who the world calls Jesus the Christ. Hallelujah!
Hallelujah! Yes.
Let's see, the 12th verse. Oh no, I'm going to skip down to the 17th verse. 17th verse. And there is hope in thy end, said the Most High, that thy children shall come again to their own border. Now remember, this is the prophet Jeremiah. The definition of a prophet is that they what? They can foresee things that's going to take place before they happen. Okay? Now Jeremiah is simply prophesying that one day that all the Israelites who have been scattered around the world because of our disobedience, and we were scattered around the world because we didn't keep the covenant. So you ain't got no business hating the white man. Because it's not their fault that we ended up in captivity. It's not their fault we went into slavery. It is because our forefathers didn't keep the words of the covenant, right? You understand? Even when they was crucifying Hamashiach, whom the world called Christ, when Pilate, the Roman general, wanted to let him go, you understand? The people said, no, crucify him. He said, what have he done? They said he's making himself to be a king. And see, this is why our people can't be out here hating white folk. This is why when I go out to the streets and teach, Brother Anthony and Brother Dominique, this is why I don't be out there saying, hate the white man. This is why I don't say that. Because what did they tell Pilate? When Pilate said, but he said he's your king. They said, no, Caesar is our king. You voted. You voted. You broke what? Deuteronomy the 17th chapter? Thou shalt not vote. They voted for a Gentile system to be their king. You said, no, we don't want Hamashiach, who the world called Christ, to be our king. When Pilate said, here, he's your king. They said, no, Caesar is our king. Ain't that what they said? You voted. And every time our people keep these, you can say, well, I ain't going to vote for Trump. I ain't going to even vote for the Democrats. It's just technically not a bad idea because neither one has really benefited us. But you can say, but I'm going to go out here and I'm going to celebrate Thanksgiving. You still voted for the system, right? Because Thanksgiving was massacre day of who? The Native Americans, right? Okay, moving on. I won't be long. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, moving along. What did I stop off at? 17. Okay. But he's given us hope. He says that there is hope in thy end. There's hope for us and all that we're dealing with in America. There's hope for us, okay? That thy children shall come again unto their own border. Now that's beautiful right there. That makes me feel good. What does we shall come again to our own border mean, Dominique? Ooh, get that brother a hand. Our own border, our own land. That means this is not our land, right? Right. Wait a minute, Apostle. I've been living here all my life. And you still treated like an underclass citizen. Okay. Now moving on. The 27th verse. Drop down to the 27th verse in the same chapter. Behold, the days come, said, wait a minute, before I go there, I want to point out something as well from the book of Maccabees. That's not in your 66 Bible. The book of Maccabees, which is the books that was taken out of the Bible, which is supposed to be between Malachi and Matthews. But in the book of Maccabees, the first chapter, I just want to point out, since this is voting season, okay? First Maccabees, first chapter. I just want to point out, since this is voting season, you understand, that our forefathers voted for us to be up under this system. And I just gave you one example about when Pilate wanted to release Hamashiach and said, this is your king, and our people rejected him as their king and said, Caesar is our king. You understand? That's why we have to render things that are due Caesar to Caesar, because our forefathers put us here. But I also want to point out to you something from the book of First Maccabees. Next time I'll just look it up on the television so y'all can see it. First Maccabees, the first chapter. I'll read it briefly. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, has smitten Darius, king of the Persians, and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. And many made wars and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Fourth verse. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. Fifth verse. And after these things he felt sick and perceived that he should die. Sixth verse. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom, or divided his kingdom among them, while he was yet alive. Seventh verse. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. Eighth verse. And his servants bare rule, everyone in his place. Ninth verse. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after their many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. The 10th verse. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus, the king who had been at hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. 11th verse. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many. Now this is the verse I want you to focus on. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a what? Covenant with who? The heathen that are around about us. For since we departed from them, we had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. So in the 11th verse, there were some wicked Israelites that went among other Israelites and persuaded them, convinced them to go and make a covenant or an agreement with the heathen. Now, you can read the rest of that to your own time, you understand? And, matter of fact, I'll go ahead and read the 15th verse. Let's see. Yeah, I'll stop right there. So there were some Israelites that persuaded other Israelites to go and make a covenant with the heathens. So they made a covenant with the heathens. So what is that saying? What is that saying? That's saying that they was voting. They was voting to be like the heathens. You could have stayed in Egypt. If you wanted to be like the whole reason why the Most High brought our forefathers out of Egypt was to be like him. He said, you shall be holy even as I am what? In other words, he said, you should have, I should have left you in Egypt. Like, people don't understand the whole reason that the Most High saves you is so that you can be like him. You can't call yourself saved and you're still walking according to the lust of the world. That ain't holiness. You being lukewarm. There's only two choices. There is no neutral ground between obeying Yah and disobeying Yah. There is no neutral ground. Y'all hear me? There's no neutral ground. He said either you are hot or what? Cold. You hear that, Dominique? You either hot or cold. You either right or wrong. You either bad or you either righteous or wicked. There is no Switzerland factor. You know about Switzerland, you know, the nations of Europe, they will war against one another, but Switzerland always remained neutral. You know. All right. So we see, I'll give you two examples where our forefathers voted for a Gentile system. They listen, like I said, you don't have to vote Republican or Democrat because the vote has already been made. We're under a Gentile system. But it makes no sense if you say, hey, I ain't voting for either party. But you go right on out here and celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas, you understand? Easter, Valentine's. You still vote for the system. You're still voting for the system. But what we can do is bring ourselves back into the oak of the covenant and start voting for the Most High by keeping the covenant of Torah, by keeping Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Weeks, Memorial of the Blowing of the Trumpet, Day of Atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, the 8-day solemn assembly, holy assembly. You understand? Feast of Dedication. In keeping these commandments, what are you doing? You're voting for Torah. Man, I ought to have my, I ought to have your sister, son, to do me a new logo. Vote Torah.
Yeah.
And get that on the shirt, you know what I'm saying?
I see it right there. I wear it.
You know, vote Torah, right? Because voting Torah would do us more good than voting Republican or Democrat. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I like that. That kind of rhyme. Vote Torah. So I just wanted to read that from the book of Malachi. Okay. Now, okay, let's see. Okay. I won't be long, but I will be strong. Next time I get the other skill to look it up here so I can you know, I lost my grandfather, but the Most High gave me a grandfather in elder scales. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he knows how much he means to me. I know he already have a bunch of other children, but
We'll try.
but yeah, okay. Now, let me get back. Okay. Now, Jeremiah the 31st chapter, the 31st verse. 31st verse. Okay. Now remember, Jeremiah is prophesying while our forefathers is in sin or going into captivity in the southern kingdom of Judah. He is what? He is prophesying, and a prophet is someone who can foresee things that will take place years, centuries on down the line. Okay? And that's why I say that historical facts is not the best proof of scriptures. But prophecy is the best proof of scriptures. You understand? And that's what I teach Egyptologists. Because Egyptologists will come at me with historical facts. You understand? But I come with them with prophecy. You understand? No text in the pyramid text or the coffin text can pinpoint and describe the condition of the so-called black man in America as Deuteronomy in the 28th chapter 2. I mean, it scripture after scripture from the 15th to the 68th verse, you understand, you know, if you can't see who the true Israelites is reading them scriptures, man, you got to be blind. You got to have a veil over your face. And any book that can point out the condition of my people in America that was written thousands of years ago is a book that I'm going to follow. Now, so Jeremiah prophesied, and he's prophesying, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, every pastor wants his ministry to grow. I want the ministry to grow to 10,000 like T.D. Jakes or Cliff O'Donnell. I am not saying anything. I didn't mean to say those. But anyway, I want the ministry to grow. I would love to have a 10,000 mega church like T.D. Jakes and Clefo Dollars. I would love to have, you understand that, you understand? But the Most High reminds me of the ministry of Jeremiah. Because at one time Jeremiah wanted to sit it down. He said, I don't want to teach no more, I don't want to prophesy no more, you understand? And Isaiah too. They was all discouraged. But the Most High told them, a question was asked, how long shall I preach? The Most High said, until cities are desolate, until the land is empty of inhabitants. Well, wait a minute, why am I preaching? Ain't nobody getting saved. No, you're not preaching for them to get saved. You're preaching because you're working for me. Of course, we hope that everybody will get saved, you know what I'm saying, when we present this saving knowledge, you understand? But see, whenever you in ministry, you got to be doing it for the Most High, because if you're doing it for the people, especially the black folk, you're doing it for... Some black pastors are now taking jobs as pastors of white folk. Because they said pastor of black folks is bad for him. There's a little humor, but see, we are a very, but no other people went through what we went through. No other people, because Israelites have always had problems dealing with authority by Israelites, not dealing with authority by Gentiles. Let me say it again for my remote listeners. Israelites have always had problems dealing with authority by Israelites, rather than dealing with authority by Gentiles or Hamites. Let me say it one more time for my listeners who are viewing us remotely. Israelites have always had problems, Dominique. Black folks have always had problems dealing with authority by black folks than dealing with authority by other folks, like white folks. What am I saying right there? What am I implying? Anybody? What am I implying by making this statement? Say it again loud. We rather listen to our oppressors. We rather take orders from our oppressors. We rather be abiding by the authority of our oppressors than taking orders and authority by our own people. This is why our people keep voting other people over us. This is why our people keep voting other nations over us. Whenever you support another nation's business more than you support a black-owned business, you're voting another nation's business over a black-owned business. When you support another nation's business more than you support a black-owned business. Voting is not just going and voting in a voting booth. Voting is a decision that you make every day.
There you go. Yeah.
Voting is a decision that you make every day. And every day, as much as our people protest against this system, they're not protesting, Brother Anthony. They're not protesting, Brother Dominique. They're not protesting, Libora. They're not protesting to be separated from the system. They're protesting to be treated equal in the system. When the system says be holy. Well, what does holy mean? Say it again. Everybody. Holiness means to be set apart from the goddamn system. I didn't curse. Goddamn simply means the system is down. It's cursed. You want the system. Asking this system to reform itself is like going to the devil and saying, would you reform yourself and treat me right?
Right, there you go.
Will you treat me right? I don't want to leave. To me, it's still the jailhouse. Woo!
All right, now.
No matter how good, no matter how good, no matter how many social welfare benefits they give the so-called black man and black woman of America, no matter how, because the Democrats is known as the social welfare, you understand, party of America. And our people love voting for that donkey ass. You understand?
Yep. Absolutely.
No, the word ass in the proper definition, Dominique, means a donkey. You understand? But our people love voting for that system for the tokens, for the crumbs.
Yeah, they did. Right.
When the Most High want to give you the table and the best on the table.
Yeah.
But you want the crumbs. The Most High want to give you back your nation by bringing you to your own borders. You understand? But you want the crumbs.
Yeah.
You want to stay in the projects.
Money what this looks like.
No, Apostle, I'm not on Section 8. Let me tell you something. If you're not in your own land, you in the projects.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
If you're not in your own land, you in the projects. Let's see. Move it on. Where did I stop at? Okay. Deuteronomy, the 31st chapter. I need to get ready and conclude. Jeremiah, the 31st chapter. Behold, the days come, said the Most High, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Now, it's really not no new covenant. It's just an extension or a different dispensation of the same covenant that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 32nd verse. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they did what?
Right.
Although I was an husband unto them, said the Most High. The 33rd verse. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, said the Most High, I will put my law in their inward parts. Brother Anthony, does your Cephas said I will put my Torah in their inward parts?
Yes.
Okay. And write it in their hearts. And will be their Elohim. And they shall be my what? People.
Yeah.
So that same Torah, that same law that was given to our forefathers at Mount Sinai, the Most High said, look, I'm going to bring back the house of Israel. I'm going to bring back the house of Judah. You understand? But it's the same covenant, but a different dispensation. Let me finish reading this. 34th verse. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know the Most High, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, said the Most High. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin, what? No more. 35th verse. Thus says the Most High, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night. Like Elder Scales said, they just give it for signs, because the true light is the Most High, which divided the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Most High of hosts is his name. 36th verse. If those ordinances depart from me, said the Most High, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being in what? I told you it's a perpetual covenant. Israelites would never we will never perish. Look, they done tried discrimination, they done tried genocide, they done tried everything under the sun to try to diminish our numbers or to wipe us out. You understand? But we don't die, we what? Multiply. Israelites don't die, we what? Multiply. Israelites don't die, we multiply. They have always tried to diminish our numbers. Since the Pharaoh that knew not Joseph, you understand, they have tried to diminish our numbers. And now they seek to diminish our numbers today in 2020 through abortion. Because black women have the highest abortion rate in America. Let me tell you something, sisters. Black women, I don't care how many times you get pregnant. You understand? Do not abort those children. If you cannot afford to take care of those children, you call the Lost Found Israelites Ministry. You call 800-592-8213. 800-592-8213. And we will do whatever we can to help you to support them children. But don't you abort them children. Don't allow your circumstance to abort them children. Because the Bible says children are a blessing from the Most High. But they try to use abortion upon the black community. You see a lot of abortion clinics in the black community like you don't see them in the suburbs. Because they're using that as a method to diminish our numbers. High incarceration of black men, take them out the hood, take them out the homes, put them in the jailhouses, in the prisons of America. You understand? So they can't reproduce with the Israelite woman. You understand? They are trying to diminish our numbers. You understand? Even by, you understand, black on black crime. Pitting one gang against another gang. Crips against blood. Bloods against vice lords. And so on and on. You understand? They have tried to diminish our number by pushing same-sex gender education upon our young children. You understand? Why? Because same-sex relationships does not reproduce children. That's why they'll say we will legalize same-sex marriages. We don't have a problem with that. That's what they say. They're going to legalize. You know why? Because that's part of the plan to depopulate the earth. That's part of the plan. And it's an abomination. And at present, what are we dealing with? The pandemic or the alleged pandemic. COVID-19, which went from being something that did not affect the Israelites to now being we the top of the charts as the most vulnerable group. You understand? They're being affected by this pandemic or alleged pandemic. So once again, they have tried everything that they can, and they are still trying. But the Most High has given us a promise. He said that as long as the sun is giving her light, in the 35th verse, by day, and the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for light by night. In the 36th verse, he said, the seed of Israel also shall never cease from being a nation before me. That's a promise right there. In other words, no matter how much Sheol we go through, no matter how much Sheol, no matter how much hell we catching, we'll never cease from being a nation. You understand? Because we have a perpetual covenant. And as I read earlier, his love for us is what? Everlasting. Everlasting. Okay, let me move on. I need to conclude. 37th verse. Thus says the Most High, if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off the seed of Israel for all that they have done, said the Most High. But he said, if the heaven above can be measured, and the foundation of the earth searched out beneath, I will cast off the seed of Israel. You understand? But it cannot be measured by man. Therefore, the seed of Israel will not be cast out. You understand? Okay. Let's see, no, Luke 22. Luke 22. Wait a minute, let's see. Let's see. Okay. Hold up. Before we go there, I must get this other verse. Now, I want to point out where it says in this particular chapter, Jeremiah, the 31st chapter, where it says that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah, not like I made with them when I brought them out of Egypt. You understand? I want to point out to you the difference between the dispensation of the covenant when our forefathers were brought out of Egypt by the Most High, and the dispensation that Jeremiah is prophesying about during this day and age. I want to point out the difference between the two, because we know that the difference is not the Torah, right? Because the same Torah that he gave them is the same covenant, the same Torah that he's going to put in our mind and our heart, right? So we know that's not the difference. Now this is what Elder Skills brought out to me. Let's see. Okay, Isaiah 43 and 6. Now all scriptures were written by what? Example, right? Isaiah 43 and 6 says, now here's the difference. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar off, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. And the verse before that says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring you your offspring from the east and gather you from the west. Now listen, let me point out something here. When our forefathers came back from when the southern kingdom, Judah, came back from captivity to build the second temple, they came back from what land, Dominique? They came back from the land. They had been taken into captivity, the southern kingdom, by the Babylonians, and the Babylonians was conquered by the Persia. And Cyrus gave a decree that they should go back and rebuild the temple, right? So they were scattered into the area that we know today as Iraq, Iran, in that area. So the southern kingdom had not been scattered to all the four corners of the earth at that time, right? So we know when Isaiah is speaking about Isaiah is speaking 43 and 6, saying that I will say to the north and to the south, give up my people who are scattered all over the world. We know he's not implying during the time our people was in captivity to the Babylonians and the Persia, you understand? Because when Judah went into captivity, we went into captivity as a nation to Babylon. You understand? We was not scattered across the earth at that time. You understand? So Let's go to Jeremiah 31:8. Now, I did read this earlier, but I'll read it again. Behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coasts of the earth. And with them the blind, lame, the woman with child, and her that travail with child together. A great company shall return thither. Okay. Now, also earlier we read that he would gather us up from the isles. What are the isles? Islands, right? Okay. Now, this prophecy has to be referring to after we have been taken into captivity as slaves from West Africa. Because it was chattel slavery that scattered the Israelites of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi to the four corners of the earth. You understand? Even during the Roman occupation, we wasn't scattered around the whole world. During the Roman occupation, we were scattered in like Northern Africa, modern day Iraq and Iran, and Southern Europe. But we wasn't scattered like all over the earth until after we have been taken into slavery during the transatlantic slave trade. Then we were scattered all around the world. So we cannot say that Jeremiah 31:8 was implying to those Israelites who was coming back to build the second temple. You understand? Because this prophecy of Jeremiah was not was speaking of the time when we would be literally, not figuratively speaking, but literally scattered into every corner of the earth. You understand? So I just wanted to point that out. Now, the difference between Jeremiah saying a new covenant, not like the covenant that was made with our forefathers, here's the difference. Here's the difference. The difference is that he's not going to be calling us from ancient Egypt. He's going to be calling us from the north country, the south country, the coast, the isles, and the land that are far off. In other words, he's not going to be calling us from one place. See, he said, out of Egypt have I called my son. Israel is my firstborn. When he calls us out of Egypt, he calls us out of one place. But in this dispensation of the covenant, he's calling us out from everywhere we have been scattered. That's the difference of this dispensation. That's the difference. And when it says that in this dispensation, which has not happened, because we all have been called back to bethink ourselves according to the prayer of Solomon, and that we should bethink ourselves in the land of our captivity. You understand? But we have not been gathered up, because he's going to send his angels to the four corners of the earth, right? To gather us up. So we're not in this dispensation of the covenant yet. You understand? Now, let me go ahead and seal or conclude. Luke 22. No, excuse me. Let's go ahead on to Jeremiah 33:7. Jeremiah 33:7. I don't know how to say. What time is it?
12:40.
Ooh. Jeremiah 33:7 says, and I will cause the captivity of Judah and the captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. Now, when our forefathers came back to build the temple, the second temple, that was just the southern kingdom coming back, right? During the era of the southern kingdom. But the northern kingdom didn't come back to build the second temple. Only Judah, Levi, and the Benjamites came back. The northern kingdom, which was taken into captivity before the southern kingdom, right? They didn't come back to build the second temple. Where they was at? Where did they go? So we know that this prophecy of Jeremiah cannot be, because it's saying right here in Jeremiah 33:7, and I will cause the captivity of Judah, the southern kingdom, and the captivity of who? Israel, the northern kingdom, to what? Return. See, so we know that the prophecy, because some woefully misinformed Israelite pastors, you know what I'm saying, may have taught that, wait a minute, brother, this is talking about the return, like when they went back to build the second temple. I'm like, no, it can't be. Because he said the return is not just going to be the house of Judah, but the house of Israel. See, there's a separation now. The northern kingdom, the Israelites, they went into captivity first, and they never did return to build the second temple. They didn't return. Okay, I promise I'm about to conclude. I really am. 14 verse, same chapter, Jeremiah 33. Behold, the days come, said the Most High, that I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel and to the house of what? Judah. You see that? The Lord. He said, behold, the days come. Behold, the days what? Come. Let's match close. Thank you. He said, behold, the days come when I will perform that good thing which I have promised unto the house of Israel, to the house of Judah. In those days and at that time will I call the branch of righteousness to grow up unto David. And he shall execute judgment and righteousness in the land. Okay? So, next Shabbat, I will continue part 8 of the covenant series, and this is the finale. But I will continue this part 8 of the covenant series, Yah willing, next Shabbat. At that, I want to thank everyone for joining us locally here at the Lost Found Israelites Ministry. And for those of you who have joined us remotely by way of YouTube or Facebook Live, you can reach us for questions and comments. Questions and comments, 800-592-8213. On any day except High Shabbat or Weekly Shabbat, you can pick up my book, which is We as a People, on Amazon.com. We as a People, Amazon.com, or you can also call 800-592-8213 as well. Give Almighty God a hand clap praise. Thank you.
Yeah.